After all, if you haven't seen your husband in weeks and then he takes you to your favorite bar to drink champagne, you certainly don't want anyone joining the party, especially if they've just been murdered.
The National Broadcasting Company presents The Adventures of the Abbotts, starring Claudia Morgan and Les Damon as Pat and Jean Abbott, those popular characters of detective fiction created by Francis Crane. NBC invites you to join Pat and Jean each week at this time for an exciting recorded adventure in romance and crime. Our guest star in tonight's story is Miss Sherry Britton, making her second dramatic appearance in The Adventures of the Abbotts. And now, here is Jean Abbott to set the stage for tonight's puzzle in murder, a story she calls The Pink Elephant.
I hadn't seen Pat for 2 whole miserable, lonesome weeks. So when he came home, we thought we'd celebrate. There's a cute little cocktail lounge near Pat's office called the Pink Elephant. It was a pet spot of ours, especially because our pal, Sammy Page, could be found there every night playing the piano, playing that fabulous, lazy blues of his. So Pat and I went to the Pink Elephant. We didn't find out about it until later, but while we were having our first cocktail, a little discussion was taking place in the office of a friend of ours, Gil McIntyre, managing editor of the Register. Gil was at his desk when he looked up and saw he had a visitor.
Hiya, Gil boy. I haven't seen you in a long time. I thought you'd just never forgive me if I didn't drop in and say hello.
I could have gotten along without it, Louis.
Mind if I close the door? It's more cozy, especially for 2 old pals like you and me.
Go ahead, close it. Then speak your little piece, whatever it is, and blow.
How you doing these days, Gil? Still the fearless newspaper man? Saving humanity and, by a strange coincidence, running up the circulation of the paper at the same time?
Don't get all hopped up, Louis. You've just come out of jail. Everybody feels the way you do when they first get out. Just take it easy or you'll flip.
I ain't hopped. It's very simple.
What is?
You sent me to the clink for 8 years. So now?
Yeah, so now?
Now I'm going to blow your stinking head off. That's nice and simple, isn't it? Oh, I'm not going to do it now, Gil. I'm not that crazy. I'm going to do it when I feel like it. Maybe tonight, maybe next week, next month, next year. I want you to sweat a while. You can't have a cop with you forever. There'll be a minute, a day, a spot. I'll get a break. Call the cops if you want to. Tell them about the threat. How long will they protect you? And how well?
While Gil was facing Louis, Pat and I were our regular table at the Pink Elephant, in a small back room reserved for their extra special guests. But the door was open so we could hear Sammy Page at the piano. Pat.
Yes, darling?
Pat, you were in New York for 2 weeks on a case, and you still haven't told me the most important part of it.
Why? What did I leave out?
Were there any luscious blonde suspects?
Oh, sure. And a sensational brunette. And a redhead.
And you just concentrated on the case.
Now, look, dear. Didn't you tell me you couldn't come to New York with me because an old school chum was getting married?
Oh, that was the truth.
Yes, well, it takes just a few minutes to get married. You still had 13 days, 23 hours, and 55 minutes to yourself. What did you do, sit home and read the Encyclopedia Britannica?
Oh, absolutely. I started with the first volume, A to Ostra, whizzed through that, and when I was well into the middle of the second volume, that's Ostra to Kalga, I got your wire you were coming home. Oh, listen, Pat. It's like Shangri-La, isn't it? After these 2 impossible weeks without you, we're together again. And Sammy's providing the perfect background music.
Mm-hmm. And we've been kind of rude to Sammy, darling. We've been so busy with each other, we haven't said hello to him.
Oh, you're so right, Pat. Sammy.
Hiya, Jean. Pat?
Hi.
Let's talk to him. Maybe he'll play a few requests.
Sure.
Sammy, how about my favorite tune?
Okay.
I wish I could play.
Oh, I can.
You, Jean?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you never told me. Well, sit down here.
Oh, no. She's not very good, Sammy.
I'm merely terrific, that's all.
Go ahead.
Oh, must you, dear?
I must. My public demands it.
Oh. All right. Now that the amateur hour is over, let's hear Sammy, huh?
What's the difference, Pat? Let her go on playing. Everybody's gone home anyway. Go on, Jean.
Sammy, I'm glad you appreciate great talent when you hear it. My husband is an illiterate, tasteless oaf who doesn't know hot piano playing when he hears it.
Okay, dear. Now, if you don't quit, I'm going to pick you up bodily and carry you away from that piano.
Well, why not let her have some fun? Everybody likes to fool around at the piano.
Say, I didn't know you could play, Mrs. Abbott.
Oh, hi, Marion. Oh, please don't interrupt me. I'm inspired tonight.
Gil, will you, Marion?
No, he's still at the paper. Told me to meet him here, but I guess he's stuck. Well, I'm going home. Sammy, if Gil comes in later, ask him to call me in the morning, will you?
If you want to give him a message, give it to him yourself.
Well, what's burning you? I just asked a favor.
Oh, I'll tell Gil, Marion.
Oh, thanks. Bye now.
Oh, Sammy, you take over. I've given my all, and I'm exhausted.
Okay, Mrs. Abbott.
Sammy, what's wrong? You and Marion have another scrap?
No, just can't stand that girl, that's all. You know, Mrs. Abbott, first time she came in here, she was a very sweet kid. That was a couple of years ago. Tonight she breezed in, socked away 5 double scotches, dresses like a mouse, smears that junk on her face, wisecracks with everybody.
Well, maybe she's just growing up. Lots of young girls try to be glamorous when they're her age and just succeed in being foolish.
How old is she, anyway?
20.
20? Well, Jean is right. That accounts for it.
Pat.
Oh, Gil! Gil, you missed my recital at the piano.
You put the newspaper to bed, Gil? Marion was just
Pat,
here.
never mind that, please. Come over here to this corner. I have to talk to you right away. Something's happened.
Oh, sure. Excuse us.
Go right ahead, Mr. Ray.
Well, what is it, Gil?
Pat, Louis Canito's in town. He just got out of jail. He came to my office and he said he's going to kill me.
Gil was deadly pale. He kept mopping his brow with his handkerchief. I had to hold a match for him. He couldn't light his own cigarette because his hands were trembling so much. I thought he'd collapse. We sat at the table in the back room, and he told us the whole story of how Louis had threatened to murder him.
I put up a front, Pat. I acted tough, like it meant nothing. But I had plenty of butterflies in my stomach. Louis said I'd sweat blood, and he's right. Have you got any idea what it's like to be in this spot? When someone's told you that they'll kill you somehow, somewhere, someday, it could be a year from now, 3 years, who knows? But when it's hanging over you like that, Pat...
What did he mean by saying you sent him to prison?
That's just a neurotic exaggeration on his part. I didn't do it directly at all. I wrote a series of exposés for the paper about Louis and his mob.
Mm-hmm.
He had big money. He was trying to expand. He owned 6 rackets in the States, and he was trying to set up a kind of a cartel internationally. He had tie-ups with some of the biggest black marketeers and phonies in Europe and South America. He had a finger in fake uranium promotion in Canada. He had men working for him in Shanghai, Macau, Cairo. Well, the DA's office read my articles, and the public got all hopped up. There was pressure to crack down on Louis, so they did, and he ended up behind bars.
But you were just doing your job, Gil. You didn't double-cross him or prosecute him. Lots of papers write about racketeering.
I know, but that isn't the way Louis looks at it. He blames the whole thing on me, personally. He has nothing against the DA or the judge. Just me. I'm the patsy. He wasn't just talking either, Pat. He'll do it, or one of his hoods will.
His hoods might. I know the technique. They bring a stranger from 1,000 miles away, gets into an elevator with you, or better yet, spot you from a passing car, Fires the shot, beats it. They ship him back where he came from. No connection with you. The cops draw a complete blank.
One of these mornings they'll do it, Pat. Now, can you help me? You've got to, Pat. You've got to think of something.
All right, no. First thing to do is to calm down.
But I can't stop thinking about it. I won't be able to work. I won't be able to sleep tonight.
Telephone for you, Mr. McIntyre.
That's Louis. To ride me again, I'll bet. The office knows I'm here. They might have told him.
Don't get so head up, Mr. McIntyre. It isn't Louis. It's just your office.
Oh, thanks, Sammy. Pardon me, Pat. Jean, I'll be right back.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, Gil.
Careful. Don't trip out here, Mr. McIntyre. The boss turned out most of the lights since everybody's gone.
I'll be careful, Sammy.
Phone booth's in the far corner.
Yes, I know. Do you know Louis Canito when you see him?
Louis Canito? Yeah. I think I'd remember him. I'll tell you if I see him around.
All right.
He won't have to tell you anything, Gil.
Louis.
I told you you'd get awful nervous, Gil.
Louis, get out of here. I told Pat Abbott about you threatening me. If anything happens to me, you're the first guy they'll pick up. You're a two-time loser, Louis. You got a bad record. They'll nail you for it in a minute. You'll get the chair, you screwball.
Sure. But they'll have to find me first. That might be awful tough, and you wouldn't know the difference. You'll be in a coffin.
Cut out that kind of talk, Louis, and beat it.
Easy, Gil. You'll blow your stack.
I can't stand this, Louis. I tell you, I can't. Gil, what happened?
Pat, is Gil all right?
This Gil's all right, Jean. Louis is dead.
Louis's body was sprawled on the floor of the Pink Elephant. I was horrified and quite surprised at the turn of events. Gil was babbling hysterically to Pat, who kept walking around, touching this, examining that, thinking...
Pat, I didn't kill him, so help me. I didn't kill him, Pat.
It's odd. I don't see a gun around here anywhere. What did you say happened?
I was just standing there talking to Louis. Suddenly I heard shots and Louis fell down.
You see what happened, Sammy?
No, sir.
Well, neither did we. The door to that back room was closed.
Well, I was sitting at the piano playing at him. Didn't you hear me in the other room?
Oh, yes, we did.
Why, I heard an argument between Mr. McIntyre and Louis, and then I heard the shots.
Mm-hmm. What direction did they come from?
I couldn't say. I was so surprised and scared. I don't know.
Well, the front door isn't locked. Could the shots have come from the street?
Well, yeah, sure. Well, I can't say exactly where they came from. I don't know.
Does Marion live far from here? Anybody know?
Not far, Pat.
Gil, which way were you facing? Toward the street?
No, toward the telephone booth.
Mm-hmm.
It was very dark. All I could make out was Louis standing there. Pat, I tell you, I didn't do it.
Yeah. Well, it isn't going to be easy to sell that story to the police, Gil. Who did kill Louis? The little man who wasn't there? You and Louis had quite a feud going on between you. He's lying there dead. You're standing in front of him. How does that look to you?
I know, Pat. I know all about it.
5 will get you 10. Any jury in the world puts the rap on you.
Look, Pat, you're a detective. There must be something you can do, something to help me.
Yes, I'm going to do it right now.
What is it?
I'm going to call the police.
The police got nowhere. They never found the gun. They shot pictures, made maps, and took us to headquarters for questioning. Finally, they let everybody go. A sharp lawyer from the Register got Gil out on bail. Gil's reputation and pull were powerful enough to spring him for a while. He began to feel better. He knew that so far the police had nothing on him, and he began to feel there was some hope. The case against him was slightly this side of circumstantial. Then at the Pink Elephant one night, Pat and I were at our table with Marion, Gil's girlfriend. Sammy, as always, was at his piano. Waiting for Gil again, Marion.
Uh-huh. He's awfully late tonight, too. I can't imagine where he is.
Tell me, Marion,
Yes, Sammy.
haven't you anything better to do than to sit around bars all night waiting for Gil?
And what business is it of yours?
You poor kid. You think it's clever to put that goo on your face and smoke 3 packs a day and drink liquor like it was water. And you end up in a mess much too big to handle. You can call me a reformer or a blue nose or a square, but I don't dig it. I think it's a shame. I hate to see kids like Marion in these joints all hours.
No, Sammy, take it easy. Marion's a decent, bright girl. She can handle herself. Don't you start lecturing the Pink Elephant's clientele on the subject of morals.
Okay, Mr. Abbott. I just sound off about it now and then. This juvenile delinquency business is a bloody heartbreaking thing, you know?
Yes, of course it is. But all youngsters aren't that way, Sammy.
Well, she just wants to have a normal girl's fun, going out, dating.
Is it fun for a girl like Marion to be running around till 4 o'clock in the morning?
Oh, come on, Sammy, knock it off. You're an old nuisance sometimes, you know.
Kids didn't act that way back in my time. I knew you when you were a decent kid. I don't know what's happened to you.
I like what's happened to me. I think I'm doing very nicely.
Jean, let's go outside, get some fresh air, huh? Leave these two to their arguments.
Listen.
Excuse us, Marion. Sammy, see you later.
Why do you have to drink all night? You drink 5, 6
I don't see why it should bother you.
Would one enough?
Now, listen.
Come on, Jean, walk faster. I want to get away from here.
Oh, where are we going, dear?
I've only got one suspect, Gil McIntyre. I haven't really done a job on him. I'm going to give him a fancy workout.
Pat and I took a cab to the office of the Register. It was deserted at 3 a.m., being an afternoon paper. We sneaked past the night watchman and tiptoed down the hall toward the newsroom.
Shh. Quietly, Jean, quietly.
Well, I thought you wanted to see Gil McIntyre. He isn't here. Nobody's here.
That's right. Makes what I wanted to do much simpler.
Oh, well, what did you want to do, dear? Well, you have the most irritating habit of talking riddles at the most crucial moments.
Now, never mind. Can you find the light switch?
Well, of course not. Remember me, the gal who always stubs her toe at night looking for the light switch? I never found one in my life.
Okay. I'll light a match. Yeah, there's Gil's desk over there. Now, come on. Very quietly. Easy.
I still don't see what you're up to.
Jean, there have been a lot of angles to Gil's background that he's been awfully vague about. I came here to see if he'd enlighten me. But this way, it's so much easier. Now, you light another match, and I'll open this drawer in his desk. Good. Now, you got a nail file?
Uh-huh. Wait a second. Here.
Well, this won't be tough. These desk locks are child's play.
Oh, for you, Houdini, sure.
Sure, it shows you how study pays off.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. Remember all those nights I used to spend talking with that old locksmith we met in New England? One more second. There we are.
You looking for the gun that killed Louis?
Now, don't heckle me. Be quiet. Light me another match.
Oh, hurry, Pat. The watchman may come around.
These are interesting. Well, these papers clear up a little something about Gil I wasn't too sure about.
What are they?
That cartel of Louis Canedo. The one Gil was supposed to have broken up for the sake of crusading journalism or what have you. That seems to have been reorganized. Looks like Gil runs it himself.
Gil took over Louis's racket?
Yes, with minor variations. That's why he exposed Louis, I guess. He wanted the money for himself. Wanted Louis out of the way.
Well, no wonder Louis hated him. I always thought Gil was such a darling.
Oh, just a second. Looks like Gil didn't keep the whole deal to himself. Here's a piece of paper signed by Marion. I'll bet he gave her some stock in one of those phony corporations the boys have. Yeah, she said I'm doing very nicely, remember? She dresses expensively, lots of jewelry. How about a perfume?
Oh, costs a fortune.
Uh-huh. Sure, that's what Gil must have done.
Well, she's a very smart apple, this apparently innocent youngster.
Mm-hmm.
Ow!
Huh?
Must I hold matches for you? What kind of a detective are you without a flashlight?
Oh, all right, I'll light my own. Now, this is my last one. I'll have to work fast. Might be even more papers in here in the pigeonholes. These old-fashioned desks.
Well, I'll roll the top back. Never let it be said that Mother's little helper. Pat. Look.
What? What is it?
On the floor, dripping down from inside here. Is that blood?
Yeah, you better let me roll back this top. Stand away.
Wait, it's Gil. Is he dead?
Wait a minute. Yeah. Someone took a copy spike and drove it right through his head.
Oh, it's awful, Pat. I feel dizzy. The sight of...
Steady, darling, steady. Just sit down. No. Come on. We're going back to the Pink Elephant.
The body, dear. We can't just leave it.
Yes, we have to. Now, no one must know about this. Not for just a few minutes. It gives me the margin of time I need. Now, don't say a word about this to anyone. Watch yourself very carefully. Not even a little slip that would indicate we've been anywhere near this office. I want to see if Marion has any ideas about why Gil is late for his date. And I want to set a little trap, too. Now, remember. And don't be grim, either. Just be your usual gay self. Everything depends on our getting away with this as though nothing in the world had ever happened.
Enjoy your stroll, Mr. Abbott?
Yeah, very refreshing, Marion. The smoke in these places and the liquor fumes bother me.
Oh, my boy spent too much time on those western prairies. Big outdoors man. Feels all confined with us city folk.
You haven't seen Gil anywhere, have you?
No.
I wonder what happened. He said he'd be here at 2:30, and it's almost sunrise.
Well, Marion, don't fret. Just relax and listen to Sammy. That Sammy's got to teach me to play like that.
I will, Mrs. Abbott. Anytime.
All I know is that one crummy tune. Well, anyone want to hear it?
Well, there she goes, the fearless type.
Please, Mrs. Abbott. It makes me nervous when people touch my piano. Just a whim of mine, if you don't mind.
Okay, Sammy, I know how you feel. It's tuned just the way you like it, sort of like your own baby. I won't bother you.
Oh, go on, Jean. Play that crummy tune.
Do I hear you correctly?
You do. I want you to play it for us. Right now. Go ahead.
But, Mr. Abbott,
Sammy just told me.
I said play the piano this minute, Jean. Now get away from the piano, Sammy. Let my wife play it. You heard me. Everybody heard me.
Pat, are you serious? What for? What's got into you?
I've never been more serious in my life. There's nothing I want to see so much as you sitting at that piano. And don't lose any time.
Gosh, everybody's gone screwy tonight.
Mr. Abbott, I just...
Does she play the piano right now, Sammy, or do I shove you away from there and put her on that piano stool myself?
Oh, okay. You asked for it. Ladies and gentlemen, a special arrangement by Jean Abbott. At the request of my silly husband, who thinks it's entertaining. Sammy, you got a cigarette or something stuck in the back of the piano? Sammy, I asked you...
Go ahead,
if...
Sammy. Go back to the piano and take out the gun.
The gun?
All right, Mr. Abbott. As you say. Here it is.
Thanks, I'll take it.
But, Pat, well, whose gun is that?
It's Sammy's. It's the one he used to kill Louis Canito. That right, Sammy? Well, come on, Sammy. You haven't got a prayer.
Okay. Yes. It's the gun I used to kill Louis.
The gun you used?
Sammy, you killed...
We found Gil's body, Sammy, where you left it, inside the roll-top desk.
Gil's body? Is Gil dead? Is Gil dead?
Yes, he is. We found him stabbed to death a few minutes ago.
Oh, no. I won't believe it. Oh, Gil.
Take it easy, Marion. Easy, child, easy.
I think I got the whole picture, Sammy, except for why you did this. The motivation's been puzzling me.
Somebody had to pay Gil off for what he did to my Marion.
Your Marion?
You'd have done it, Mrs. Abbott, if she were your daughter.
Oh, Sammy, we never knew.
If you wanted me to keep it quiet.
I was ashamed, Mr. Abbott. I didn't want anyone to know my father played the piano in a barroom. Oh, I guess it was terribly unfair, but you have to realize what kind of life we've had. Always on the road, always my father working in grimy little joints to make the rent money. I was desperate. I had to get out of the rut. I wanted to have money mixed with the right people. I couldn't let anyone know.
And to see a man take your own daughter and change her from the girl you've loved and raised and worked for, the girl who was your whole life, and that man turns her into a piece of cheap trash. You figure your own life isn't worth much. If you can get rid of him and straighten her out, you wouldn't listen, Marion. You just wouldn't listen to me, child. It got worse and worse. It was driving me crazy.
Oh, I know. But was it right? You always told me to play percentages. Now what have you won? What have we got now, you and I?
Pat turned Sammy over to the police. although Pat wasn't too happy about it. There's a kind of satisfaction in nailing a professional killer or an oily swindler. But sometimes this private detective work hurts you personally, when it means taking a misfit who got his signals mixed and committed a crime of passion. We promised Sammy we'd keep an eye on Marion and try to straighten her out. It was sunrise when Pat and I walked slowly home through the streets of San Francisco. Deserted, except for the very distant sound down at the waterfront of the fishing boats plying back and forth on the bay.
Okay, darling, I know what bothers you.
What bothers me, pal, is how you knew the gun was in the piano.
Well, you see, the first time you tried to play Sammy's piano, he was not only happy to let you do it, but he said he liked having anyone play it. Well, when we came back from the register office, he suddenly wouldn't let you touch it. I had to drag him away from it. That made me curious. I began thinking, what could be wrong with the piano? A cigarette or some sheet music stuck in the keys? No. No, he wouldn't raise the dickens about that. What's the one important clue that's been missing? The gun, dear, the gun. So I insisted you play. Sammy knew what part of the strings in back of the piano were covered by the gun. You didn't. He knew which keys to avoid, but he was afraid you'd strike the wrong ones.
But why did Sammy kill Louis and not Gil?
Well, Sammy must have had the gun with him for weeks, planning to murder Gil. That night, when we were in the back room with the door closed and the pink elephant was empty, Sammy had his chance. But he got smart very quickly. He'd overheard the feud between Louis and Gil, so he decided to switch and kill Louis. That way, Gil would get the rap, and nobody would ever suspect that that friendly little piano player in the corner did it. Even if they found out that he was Marion's father. Murder once removed, we call it in the trade, dear.
And the actual shooting, that was done by playing the piano with one hand.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of special jazzes written for one hand only. So, with his right, he must have shot Louis when the two men had their backs to him. I suppose Gil finally guessed what had happened, and that's why Sammy had to get rid of Gil, too.
Mm-hmm.
At the register office last night. Pat.
Yes, dear.
About that other case.
Hmm?
The one you finished in New York before we went to the Pink Elephant. The one you handled alone.
Oh, yes.
Do you still swear you weren't at all interested in the three suspects? The blonde, the brunette, or the redhead?
I swear, so help me.
That's why I love you, Pat.
Well, of course that's why.
I love you because you're such a wonderful, charming, brilliant, handsome, awful liar.
The National Broadcasting Company has presented The Adventures of the Abbotts, starring Claudia Morgan and Les Damon as those popular personalities of detective fiction, Pat and Jean Abbott, created by Francis Crane. We wish to thank our guest star, Miss Sherry Britton, for her portrayal of Marion in tonight's story. Others in the cast were Mandel Kramer and Jack Abbott. The Adventures of the Abbotts was written by Howard Merrill. Original music composed and directed by Dewey Bergman. Produced by Ted Lloyd and Bernard L. Schubert. Directed and recorded by Harry Frazee.
This is the United States Armed Forces Radio and Television Service.
After all, traveling on a luxury train is very glamorous. But did you ever read one of those timetables where it says, baggage car, note, does not carry corpse?
The National Broadcasting Company presents The Adventures of the Abbotts, starring Claudia Morgan and Les Damon as Pat and Jean Abbott, the nationally popular characters of detective fiction created by Francis Crane. NBC invites you to join Pat and Jean each week at this time for an exciting recorded adventure in romance and crime. Tonight's story, The Blue Rocket Express. And here is Jean Abbott to set the stage for our puzzle in murder.
Pat's office is in San Francisco, but he'd been called to New York on a case, and in order to clear it up, we had to take the Blue Rocket from New York to Chicago for a quick one-day visit. And then we planned to take the rocket back to New York again. We'd checked our luggage through, and we were strolling into Grand Central Terminal.
Jean,
Yes, Pat?
the train doesn't leave for 20 minutes. Why do you always drag me to trains 9 years ahead of time? Now what are we supposed to do? Stand around the terminal twiddling our thumbs?
Don't get excited, dear. They opened the train a half hour early, see? Track 32. It's open already. So come on. Stop being a typical husband and get on the train.
Oh, of all the silly things. Dragging me here so early that I... you go ahead.
Why?
I need razor blades and cigarettes and a couple of magazines I forgot to buy.
Uh-huh. We got here too early. Well, you're lucky I brought you here so fast. You'd have forgotten about it.
Okay, now just stop being a typical wife and get on the train.
I checked our space at the desk inside the gate and went into the lounge car. I just lit a cigarette when the only other passenger in the lounge, a small, bespectacled chap, nodded at me quite cheerfully.
Rather pleasant to board the train early, isn't it?
Yes, it's very comfortable.
Are you going to Chicago or on to California?
Just to Chicago for the moment.
Oh. My name's Duffield, Professor Ernest Duffield.
Mine's Abbott, Jean Abbott. You with the University of Chicago, Professor?
Oh, no. I'm going to California. I'm in the through car.
Oh, well, how do they work that? I've always flown across.
Well, you see, they switch the car off in Chicago and then hitch it on to the back of the El Dorado. That way, as they say in the ads, you don't have to change trains.
What do you teach, Professor?
Well, I'm not teaching anymore, Mrs. Abbott. I'm doing research.
Oh.
Matter of fact, that's why I'm going to Los Angeles to a conference.
And what's your subject?
Bacterial warfare.
Oh, I hate those words. Thank heavens no one's tried that yet.
Oh, but they have.
That sounds horrible. What is this conference in California?
I'm very sorry indeed, but I cannot discuss that. It would be classified information. Now, if you'll excuse me...
Please don't go. My husband would love to meet you.
Well, I'd be delighted to meet him, too, but I'm, sort of an old eccentric, I guess you might say. I can't stand crowds. The moment the train fills up, I prefer retiring to my compartment until the end of the trip. I'm alone. I can relax, read.
Goodbye, Professor. It's been most interesting.
Thank you, Mrs. Abbott. Good evening.
Well, leaving us so soon, friend? My name is Charlie Drake. Stick around, friend. I have a few stories you'll like.
I beg your pardon.
Well, get him. He ain't square. He's oblong. How about you, ma'am? I guess we might as well be friends. We're fellow travelers in the old shoot. Drake's the name, Charlie Drake. I'm the original good time Charlie.
Uh-huh.
You traveling alone, honey? Just a small-town girl at the mercy of all the traveling salesmen?
No. I'm with my husband.
Oh, well, that ties it.
In fact, here he comes.
Well, I got everything I needed, Jean.
Pat, this is Charlie Drake, my husband.
Look, house for all of us, whipping up a little bridge game. Let's see, there's three of us here. Who's that fellow over there in the corner? Anybody know him, the old geezer?
No, we don't.
What do you say there, stranger? How about for being a fourth at bridge? Eh? Oh, foxy grandpa, a little on the deaf side, huh? Well, I can always keep the folks happy. I don't believe I caught your name.
I'm Pat Abbott. This is my wife, Jean.
Going to little old Chicago, are you? So am I. I'd love to be on that through car to sunny California, but business forbids. You got nice accommodations?
Yes, we're quite happy about it.
Well, look, I'm in car 181, compartment C. Open day and night, never a dull moment. Anytime you're feeling blue, you want a few laughs, call on your good friend Charlie. Hey, have you two heard the one about the nearsighted octopus and the bagpipes? Have you? You'll bust your buttons, kid. This one's a real knee slapper. Now, listen here. It seems the octopus went to a... Who is it? Pullman conductor, sir. Urgent telegram for Professor Duffield.
Oh, all right. Just a moment. I'll find the light. And my bathrobe.
Yes?
Shut up, Professor. Get back into your compartment.
What are you doing with that gun? Who are you? What do you want?
You're bringing something to that California conference, Professor. It's a culture. Little germs in a flask.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Now, don't stall. There's no time. I know all about it. You've made a discovery. It's the most powerful bacterial weapon ever devised. The easiest to make, too. Quickest, cheapest. Now, where is it? Where's the flask?
Get out of here.
I want the flask, Professor, and right now. Be smart and turn it over.
Who are you?
Well, I guess you'd call me a salesman. I pick up little items like yours and then put them on the open market. Sell them to the highest bidder. You'd be surprised how these items draw customers. In America, Mexico City, Cairo, Berlin. I get around. I do very nicely. Now, where's the flask?
Stay away from there.
Is it in the medicine cabinet?
All I have to do is shout. The conductor will
You
come.
open your mouth, and I'll put half a dozen bullets into that celebrated brain of yours. The flask in one of your valises?
I'm going to give you 5 seconds to get out of this compartment. The flask is top secret property of the United States government. You must be out of your mind trying to get away with a thing like this.
I've done pretty well before. Now talk up, Professor. Where the devil is that culture?
I said I'd wait 5 seconds. You've about used them up.
You don't really want to die, do you, Professor? You have so much to contribute to America. Why get yourself knocked off? Don't you have a family, Professor? Friends? Don't you want to go on living? Professor, you're just begging to be killed, and I'm just the guy to do it. You know, I could even make it worth your while, Professor. I'll get lots of dough for the flask. Maybe I could cut you in for a piece. Now, where is the blasted culture, Professor? Don't touch that bell. Go. Keep your hands off that bell, or I'll crack your head open with this gun. So help me out.
After Pat and I left the lounge, we didn't see the professor or Good Time Charlie for the rest of the trip. We left the train at Chicago without knowing there was anything wrong. Neither did anybody else. Pat tended to his business and then took a relaxing spin on Lakeshore Drive in a cab. And by early evening, we were back on the return trip of the Blue Rocket Express heading for New York. After dinner in our compartment... Pat, I've been wondering. This is car 181, compartment C. Now, where'd I hear that before?
From that big bore, Charlie. He said this was his compartment on the way to Chicago. Oh, I'm awfully tired, darling. I think I'll hit the hay.
Well, I'm wide awake. Night Owl Jean, they call me.
Okay, then you go on up to the lounge. I'm going to ring for the porter and have him make up the berths. I'm knocked out.
Well, thank goodness we lost Good Time Charlie. I was afraid we'd run into him again. Or when we got off in Chicago.
Yeah. Let's come in. Oh, porter, make up our berths, please. Thank you.
Oh, I'll step out of your way, Porter, so you can pull down that upper. Pat, look. There's a body up there.
Yes, a dead body.
Oh, Pat.
Get the conductor, please, porter. Oh, someone did quite a job on him.
Well, it's Professor Duffield.
What? Who's he?
Well, I met him in the lounge car when we were leaving New York before you got here. He's a scientist and expert on bacteriological warfare.
Well, that makes it worse, much worse. You better have the conductor notify the FBI immediately.
But this wasn't his compartment. What was he doing in here?
The porter tells me someone's died in here.
Yes, conductor. When he lowered the berth a moment ago, we found this body.
What are your names?
Mr. and Mrs. Patrick Abbott.
All right. I'll find another space for you. Don't discuss this with anyone under any circumstances, except the police. I'll have them aboard at our next stop. We'll take care of everything now. Just keep calm and keep quiet. Don't go to sleep in the space I give you until I've had a chance to get more information from you.
This man, the dead man, was in the wrong compartment.
What do you mean?
Well, I met him on the way to Chicago on this train last night. If he was murdered and then his body was shoved into the upper berth and left sealed there, this is not the compartment he had for himself. His name is Professor Duffield. He was originally on the through car to California.
He was in highly classified government work, conductor. You better report that instantly when you contact the police.
My schedule book says the man who occupied this space on our trip out was a Mr. Charles Drake.
Now, conductor, my wife wouldn't make a mistake. Besides, Charlie Drake, Good Time Charlie, as he called himself, got off in Chicago. This is not Drake. Look, would you do something for me?
Oh, what is it?
Here are my credentials. I'm a private investigator. The New York police will know my name if you want to check. So will the FBI and the Pentagon. I've been on cases involving classified material.
Well, you tell all this to the police, Abbott. I'm just a conductor trying to get a train into New York.
All right. Now, this train is a radio phone. So is the El Dorado. And time may be terribly important. Would you let me call them?
Well, what for?
I want to ask them if Professor Duffield is aboard.
Well, he's lying there dead, isn't he?
Look, just let me make the call. I have a theory. There's a phone in the diesel cab of the El Dorado. I read about it in the magazine.
No, I can't let people play games now, Mr. Abbott. I have to see if there's a doctor aboard. I have to contact the police at the next town.
Just the one call. I have the right to do that, don't I? Look, I can't get away, can I? You can listen to the conversation if you like. I'm telling you, this may mean the solution of the case.
Okay, make your call. It's 2 cars ahead.
Thanks. Come on, Gene. Where are we, conductor? And what time is it?
Approaching Manfield, Ohio. It's 8:55.
Mobile operator. This is RY64372. I want BX6500.
Oh, you think you'll get through, Pat?
Probably. I've got to ask them this question.
I don't get it. Professor Duffield's dead in compartment C, and then you're calling to ask...
El Dorado, this is Patrick Abbott. I'm a private detective. Aboard the Streamliner Blue Rocket. You what? Okay, get on, conductor.
Hello, El Dorado. This is John L. McLeod, conductor aboard 15. Yes. Yes, it's all right. I understand. Yes. What's your question, Abbott?
Do they have a Professor Ernest Duffield aboard? Passenger for Union Station, Los Angeles. In a compartment on the through car.
Duffield for L.A. in the through car. Got a passenger of that description?
Well?
But what's the answer?
Yes. Are you certain? He is? Thank you. Goodbye.
What'd they say?
They have a Professor Duffield. He's fine, enjoying the trip. Of all the ridiculous gags to
Well, that's
pull...
impossible. The dead man is the professor.
All right. The police will take over shortly. We'll find out all the answers. They're getting aboard at the next stop 2 or 3 minutes now.
You said you'd find another space for us.
Yes, I'll try. Now, please, you wait here. I'll be back shortly.
All right. That's good. This is just what I wanted.
What are you going to do?
Follow me to the door.
But
now,
Pat,
never mind. The conductor has been so nice, I wouldn't want to spoil a beautiful friendship. Now, this train is slowing down. Just stand here. I'll get these latches open on this door. Now, in about 10 seconds, as the train slows down some more, you jump.
What?
Just fall easy. You'll tumble on the ground a bit, that's all.
Well, you can't skip out now. We're in the middle of nowhere. You'll be a...
We need every second, dear. Without any interference. Are you ready?
Well, the train's going too fast. I'm
Now
not...
jump!
We were lucky. We landed on soft ground. Oh, thank goodness the train wasn't going quickly. It was very dark. We were in deep grass somewhere in the middle of Ohio. No lights anywhere. Nothing.
Now, let's see if we can...
If we can what, my dear, crazy Mr. Abbott? Exactly how do we solve a murder case involving a top-flight scientist by roaming around here by the railroad tracks?
Dear, this is Mansfield. I saw on the timetable that the El Dorado is due at La Junta, Colorado, about 5:40 in the morning. Now, if we can find a road and get a hitch and grab a plane...
Yes, if...
Look. Through the grass. There's a paved road way up there. I saw a headlight. Come on. Let's try for that hitch. Hurry, Gene.
We got the hitch in an old Model T. A very friendly farmer picked us up and told us there was a small airport about 15 miles away. A young veteran was operating a cargo plane service out of it. We bounced along the 15 miles in the old Lizzie, rattling like the famous skeletons on a tin roof. At the airport, we met the veteran. We thought we'd have trouble, but he was an eager kid, and the idea of trying to catch the El Dorado appealed to him. We stepped into his plane.
Yeah, I think we can do it, Mr. Abbott. Where do you figure on landing?
Well, that would be up to you, of course.
Oh?
But I'd like to pick them up somewhere around La Junta. If not, perhaps we might catch them in New Mexico.
Okay, now, you keep the timetable of the El Dorado in front of me, and I'll head for La Junta.
Well, isn't that country out there pretty rugged?
Yes, ma'am. Cliffs, hilly, rough terrain.
Well, can you make a landing out there where we can walk away from?
Ma'am, I used to fly over a spot called the Hump back in the war. From Assam to come in. You can fly over that. Anything else is a vacation with pay.
Oh, fine. That's a help. It's all we need. Real soupy storm. Now we've got to get through.
Cross your fingers. I'm taking off. Only by the way.
Yes?
There aren't any parachutes.
We took off. Pat and I squatted on bucket seats in the back. The weather was awful. The little plane rocked, rolled, and practically stood still in midair. Time was passing. Precious time. Pat?
Yes, Gene?
How do you fellas do it?
Do what?
Just sit there quiet-like as if you were on a pleasure jaunt. Me? I've bitten what's left of my nails. I've recited pertinent excerpts from a book I read called How to Keep Calm in a Crisis.
Well, just relax. There's work to be done.
Oh, yes, you always say that. But you have ice water in your veins. You're the rugged type. Me, I'm the delicate, scare real easy type.
It's none of my business, Mr. Abbott. It's kind of silly to ask now, but are you 100% certain this trip was necessary? Why couldn't you have left it to the police where the train stopped?
Because I'm after that train. By the time I convinced the authorities about who I am, what I suspected, what was going on, and fought through the right channels to the right authorities, it'll be all over. But really over.
How to keep calm in a crisis. Remember the key words. What the dickens are those key words?
I'm down about as low as I can get. We ought to be directly over the railroad tracks. I can't get any lower. We'll smack up.
Well, have you got any field glasses in this flying percolator?
Yeah, around here somewhere. See if you can spot the train. It shouldn't be too hard. The El Dorado's got a headlight that throws a beam about a half a mile.
Yeah, I've got the glasses. I'm watching.
Pat, we're awfully low.
Yes, ma'am.
If he suddenly spots anything and has to climb to avoid it, we might stall, mightn't we?
Now, just relax, dear. I told you before...
You see the train?
No, not yet.
Well, you better see it soon, Mr. Abbott. I can't keep this up indefinitely. If we come to a very high spot, I may not be able to hedge hop like I'm doing.
Well, it should be here, unless it's late. I don't see a thing. Just miles of track. I can just about make out the tracks. This storm is cutting the visibility down too much.
Are you positive you're right about the time and the place?
Yes, absolutely, Jim. The only thing could throw us is if that train is very late. That could be. Then we'd have to backtrack.
Well, it probably is late with this weather.
Now, if you just keep mum, dear, Wait a minute, wait. Wait a second, I've spotted it. I see it. A streamliner, about 20 cars. There's no freight. It's lit up like a Christmas tree down there.
Oh, thank heavens. Now what?
Can you get about 10 or 15 miles ahead of her and find a place to sit this plane down?
I can try. Oh, my aching GI back. Find a place to sit down here, huh?
We've got to, my friend. A scientist with top secret information has been killed. His head was bashed in.
Holy Aunt Hannah, is that what
yes.
this trip...
The killers are on that train. So put it down sweet and gentle and make it real fast.
If I can see a big enough stretch. This is a very small plane, but that doesn't mean we can land on a dime. You know, wait a minute. I see a spot.
doesn't look too bad. Of course, that rain's got so many puddles going, we could land and maybe hit a ditch or a gully or give hole and turn right over. I'll never see it coming.
All right. Put it down, pal.
Huh?
Right where you think we have a chance to make it.
Okay, now if I overshoot this field, there's a cliff up ahead there, see?
Let me see.
We'll go right off the cliff.
Now put it down, I said. Steady. Jean, dear.
Yeah?
Brace yourself against that seat.
Wish I could see more, but here goes. Start praying.
Easy, boy. Easy. That's it.
Pat, I can't look.
Easy.
This is it. Now.
Pat, the cliff. We're too close. We're too close.
Made it.
Oh, Rod.
That's wonderful. It's a beautiful job. Now, look. You got emergency flares?
Yeah, under the seat.
Fine, I'll take a few.
What in the world are you going to do now?
Set these off on the track in front of the El Dorado and hope there isn't an accident. They do 90 miles an hour on some of these stretches.
We ran through the rain to the tracks. The pilot stayed back with his plane and was to join us later.
I'll light a flare here, Jean. There. Now, just hope the rain doesn't kill it. You hear the train coming?
No, not yet.
Okay. Put another flare here. There. Now, let's see. Well, there are no curves on this approach. That's good. The engineer will see the flares early. Only it takes him almost a mile to come to a full stop. There. That's it. Now, just wait and watch.
Pat, you need a gun if you're going to board this train.
Yes, I need a lot of things, but I don't have any of them. I just have to take my chances. Good. He's seen it. You keep wide of the track, Jean. Very wide.
Yes, I am, dear.
He's slowing down. Now, look, when it gets to very slow speed, you watch down the left side. Watch the car doors. Someone might try to sneak off. I'll watch to my right. Shout if you see anything suspicious. Now, as she stops, run down a way so you can see more of the train. That's the girl. Now, look for the conductor. Now, don't say anything. Let me do all the talking. There he is. There comes the conductor.
Hey, what's up?
I set those flares, conductor.
What's the matter? Is this spot a washout? What's wrong here?
My name is Abbott, Pat Abbott. This is my wife, Jean. I'm a private detective. We had to stop your train.
Why?
I want to see a passenger of yours immediately, Professor Duffield. We called you about it on the radio phone, remember?
Yeah?
Now, I've no time to explain. The through car, the last one?
Yes, now, but wait a minute. You have no right to do this. You've already broken the law. Setting up flares like that.
All right. Now, you come with me. There's a murder involved. Any armed police aboard? We could use them.
No, and if what you're telling me is a lot of malarkey,
Now, let's get
I'll
on
tell...
board. Step up, Jean. All right, now. Which compartment is Professor Duffield?
Compartment D.
Here it is, Pat.
Sorry, conductor. I'm going in.
Now, just a minute. You can't just...
Yes, what is it?
Pat, it's Charlie. Good time, Charlie.
Well, what are you doing here? I thought you...
Thought that we were on our way to New York by now, Charlie? Yes, we might have been.
Well,
but
Mr. Abbott, there's Professor Duffield. Now, what's all the excitement about? You're talking to Professor Duffield.
This man is not Duffield,
What?
conductor.
Get out of my way.
Stay where you are, Charlie.
Charlie?
This man has been masquerading as Professor Duffield. He murdered the professor on the blue rocket to Chicago. Then he hid the body in the upper berth of his compartment.
You don't get out of my
You
way.
left the body in your own compartment. Then you took the professor's space on the through car. All the crews are changed. You told everyone in the El Dorado that you were Duffield.
All right, Abbott. If you won't get out of the way.
Put down that gun. you-
Everybody, out of my way. I'll shoot anybody that tries to follow me. Don't move till I'm off this car.
Pat, how we stop him?
I'll get after him. That flask he took with him may be terribly important.
Pat, come back. He'll kill you.
He's left the train. I can see him through this window. He's running up the hill out there.
Pat, don't!
The door he slammed. There, I got it. Come back, Charlie!
I told you not to follow me, Abbott.
I said come back!
I won't miss this time.
Now look out! Behind you, the cliff!
Charlie, gripping the flask, fell 3,000 feet. And turning to fire at Pat, he didn't notice that he was beside that same ominous cliff we almost went over when we were in the plane. Sometime later, Pat and I were back on the El Dorado. The conductor and local police were conferring about the crime. Pat and I were having hot coffee in the lounge.
Well, Jean, I know exactly what you're going to say.
Do you?
Yes, you're very upset because I took so many chances.
Well, I certainly am. After all these years of married life, I've become rather fond of you, Patrick, and I'd hate to see...
I beg your pardon, Mr. Abbott.
Oh.
Mrs. Abbott.
Oh, hello. I remember you from the Blue Rocket. You're the gentleman who wouldn't play bridge with us.
Yes. I think I'd best introduce myself. I am Professor Ernest Duffield.
You're what?
That is correct. My identification papers. Would you care to see them, Mr. Abbott?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
They told me what you did. I am extremely grateful. And so I imagine is the government. It is quite simple. The man Charles Drake murdered was hired to impersonate me. I was bitterly opposed to the idea, but the Scientists' Commission insisted upon it. I pleaded with them, but they wouldn't listen. The chap volunteered for the job, fully realizing how dangerous it was.
Well, Professor, your flask is gone. I presume it contains something very valuable?
It was supposed to contain something valuable, Mr. Abbott. And Mr. Drake went to great pains to find it, but, of course, it was worthless. The flask Mr. Drake died with in his hand was a nickel's worth of colored water. The real flask obviously is being sent to California by other means.
And how do we know you're Professor Duffield? I don't like to seem rude or melodramatic, but couldn't those identification papers be a government-manufactured fake for security reasons? Couldn't you be a government agent, maybe, impersonating Duffield, too? Did the government take the chance of revealing who the real man is, even now?
Did they, Mrs. Abbott?
Pat and I finally got back aboard the Blue Rocket on our way to New York. We were alone in our bedroom. Pat, do you realize you haven't kissed me since we left New York 3 days ago?
My, that's quite a debt I owe, isn't it?
You owe me 228 kisses, plus interest and carrying charges. A grand total of 343.
Wow. I better start paying off, huh?
Well, you'll find this is a very friendly bank, Mr. Abbott. We wouldn't mind at all if you'd overdraw your account. Moral of the story. There are plenty of fast express trains from Chicago to New York. But if you have a handsome husband who likes to make love to you, don't be a fool. Take a slow train.
The National Broadcasting Company has presented The Adventures of the Abbotts, starring Claudia Morgan and Les Damon as those nationally popular personalities of detective fiction, Pat and Jean Abbott, created by Francis Crane. The cast included Kenny Delmar, Louis Van Ruten, and Mandel Kramer. The Adventures of the Abbotts was written by Howard Merrill. Original music composed and conducted by Dewey Bergman. Produced by Ted Lloyd and Bernard L. Schubert. Directed and recorded by Harry Frazee. This is Bill Rippey speaking. Next week, same time, same station, another exciting adventure in crime with Pat and Jean in The Adventures of the Abbotts.
This is the United States Armed Forces Radio and Television Service.
After all, even breaking up an international crime ring doesn't justify another woman's borrowing your husband for a honeymoon. Now, does it?
The National Broadcasting Company presents The Adventures of the Abbotts, starring Claudia Morgan and Les Damon as Pat and Jean Abbott, those popular characters of detective fiction created by Francis Crane. NBC invites you to join Pat and Jean each week at this time for another exciting recorded adventure in romance and crime. Tonight's story, The Dead White Lifeboat. And here is Jean Abbott to set the stage for tonight's puzzle in murder.
Since the international situation is extremely tense and the picture changes constantly, many of the governments of the Western world that have gold, bonds, and other valuables in outlying islands, possessions, and obscure portions of the world occasionally move the bullion out. This time, the British government was moving valuables back to London. And Pat had been called in by insurance companies connected with the project to act as a private consultant on a special fee basis. So we sailed for England. At sea, I'd gone topside for a suntan. Pat had gone below for a Tom Collins. He was just leaving the bar alone and heading for the stairway when a very exotic young lady came up to him. She looked as if she'd just stepped out of a perfume ad.
Please, I'm in trouble. You've got to help me.
Why? What's wrong?
You've got to say you're my husband. I can't explain now, but it's terribly important. You must believe me. This isn't a joke or a trick. I'm very serious about it.
Now, look, I may have just come from the bar, but I'm practically sober. There's nothing wrong with me, so if this is any kind of a gimmick at all, funny or not, I'm just not interested.
It's a matter of life and death. Pretend you're my husband for a few minutes. That's all I ask. I'll explain later.
Sounds like a great way to get mixed up in a brawl or a lawsuit. Why don't you try somebody else, ma'am?
I'm telling you that you'll save my life if you'll do it. Those men, the two men, coming toward us now. See them?
Yes, friends of yours?
No, I told you I can't explain. Just say you're my husband. For heaven's sake, I beg of you, don't let me down.
Yes, but what?
Shh. Here they come.
Hi, Rhoda.
Hello, Fred.
You remember Johnny, don't you? Sure she does. How have you been, Rhoda?
Oh, fine. Thank you. I don't believe you've met my husband, have you? Fred Carter, Johnny Simmons. This is my husband, Harry.
Oh, glad to meet you, Harry.
Hello, Fred.
We've heard a lot about you, Harry.
Well, I'm glad to know you, too, Johnny.
We've been looking all over the boat for you, Rhoda. Then I suppose you two honeymooners have made it your business to be alone, huh?
I'm sorry we didn't get to your wedding.
Well, we were, too.
It was my fault, Johnny. I told Harry it would be in bad taste, though. You know, a second wedding for me. I didn't want a very elaborate ceremony, so we just stole away.
We'd have had to apologize to a lot of our friends. Perhaps we'll have a little reception in England, Rhoda?
I think we should, darling.
I've heard many interesting stories about you, Harry.
Yes, we could hardly wait to meet you.
I almost got to see you in Washington. When were you there?
About 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. Let me see. Yeah, I guess that's about right.
Oh, look who's coming.
Who?
That girl. She's an old friend of mine. Jean Abbott, of all people.
I was just going...
Well, Jean Abbott, I haven't seen you in years. How are you?
Oh, I'm fine, thank you. Just fine.
Good. How's your husband?
I was just going... My what?
I said, how's your husband?
Oh, you mean Alphonse?
That's it. I can never remember his name. Oh, Jean, meet my wife, Rhoda.
I always say that. Your wife.
How do you do, Jean?
How do you do?
And this is Fred and Johnny.
How do you do?
How are you? Well, we seem to be running into so many old friends today, Rhoda, don't we?
Jean, do you know these two are honeymooners?
No, I certainly did not. Really?
Well, I guess Rhoda and I can't keep it a secret much longer.
But you must all meet my husband sometime. because he's not well.
Oh, he isn't?
The gout came back.
It did?
He still has that eye trouble.
Oh, eye trouble?
Oh, yes, my poor husband. Cross-eyed, you know.
Well, I think we better be running along, huh?
Running along?
Yes, we'll leave these two lovebirds alone.
Sure, come on.
Lovebirds?
See you again sometime, Jean?
Well, I should hope so, Mr. Abbott.
Come on, darling. We'll go back to our cabin.
Okay, dear. Bye.
Goodbye.
Well.
Hey, care to join us for a stroll around the deck, Mrs. Abbott?
Well, I... Yes, I'd be glad to.
Those two make a lovely couple, don't they?
Magnificent.
She got quite a catch in him, I'd say. Handsome fellow.
I don't know about that.
Striking couple. They probably have beautiful babies.
They'll what?
Look out, Mrs. Abbott. You'll trip in that steamer chair.
Oh.
Here, I'll help you up.
Oh.
There you are. You seem so struck by what I said. I guess you didn't see that chair.
Yes. What was it you said?
I said I imagine they'll have beautiful babies.
Yes, that's what did it. Yes. I was burning up. Not from my suntan, either. A gag is a gag, fellas, let's face it. But what in the world was Pat doing masquerading as the husband of this pinup girl? My husband gallivanting around doing the mambo and standing in the moonlight with her. Then the shock wore off, and I began thinking. Johnny and Fred began to strike me as rather tough customers. There was something insidious, probably quite vicious, underneath this monkey business on board ship. I know Pat well enough to realize he'd only be in it if he knew the score. So I let it ride a while. I knew Pat and Rhoda were alone later, in her cabin.
I don't know how to thank you, Mr.
Abbott. Pat Abbott.
Oh, then, that girl we met.
That's right. She's really my wife.
Oh.
Luckily, she picked up my hint and played the part correctly. Jean is my wife, unless she's changed her mind by now.
Oh, I'm terribly sorry.
That's all right. Jean's a good kid. She'll understand when I explain it to her. By the way, Rhoda, how do you explain this? Why did you have to manufacture a husband for yourself out of thin air?
Well, my husband, Harry, is with an international bank.
Mm-hmm.
We were in Washington until recently. Then we had word that Harry's uncle died and left us quite a sizable fortune. To collect it, we had to appear at a hearing in England. In Sheffield, as a matter of fact.
Mm-hmm.
Those two men are Harry's cousins.
I see. I suppose they're named as heirs in the will, too.
Yes, but unfortunately, they're not exactly gentlemen. Fred has a police record, and Johnny's been in some very questionable deals. Harry and I were afraid that, well, since so much money is involved, we were afraid that...
Yes, of course. They'd try to kill Harry and collect the whole amount in the will themselves.
Yes. Mm-hmm. The will stipulates if Harry dies, Fred and Johnny get all the money.
Where is Harry now?
In England, I hope. We concocted a scheme. He flew across secretly on the Clipper. We lied and told everyone he'd be on the boat. Those are all his trunks over there. We put the luggage on board deliberately. Luckily, Fred and Johnny have never seen Harry. I didn't expect them to be on this boat. That's what frightens me even more.
Yes, I see. They appeared, so you had to produce a husband, Harry.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Rhoda, you can't very well keep this hoax going all the way across, can you?
Oh, I could if you'd help me. If you'd act as my husband for the whole trip.
Well, I'd be glad to help, but my wife is on board. Wouldn't Jean provide complications?
You said she's a good sport. Wouldn't she play the game?
Well, she's played it for a few hours, but for the whole trip, well, it becomes a pretty fancy game.
Oh, I know. This whole affair strikes you as absurd, but I'm desperate. I can't do anything else.
Well, Jean has quite a sense of humor, but I don't know if this gag would appeal to her. Put to her seriously, though.
Oh, would you ask her?
Well,
You'll save my husband's life, and more than $100,000. I don't know what might happen if Fred and Johnny found out Harry's not on board.
You're forgetting they think I'm your husband. They might start taking pot shots at me.
It's a risk. A terrible risk. But would they have the nerve to try anything as open as that? Please help me. You've got to. I shall be so grateful if you'll just do this for me.
Wait a minute now. Hands off, ma'am. Let's not get too grateful.
I'll make it worth your while, whatever you say.
I was just thinking,
Yes?
might not be too bad. Romantic European crossing with 2 wives.
While Pat and Rhoda were in her cabin, I was doing my best to be gay and non-committal with Fred and Johnny. Then the dinner gong sounded, and in the salon I gave myself a perfect case of galloping indigestion while I watched Pat and Rhoda at another table, being coy with each other, acting like honeymooners. For 1 shilling, I'd have gone over there and broken the clinch, but I knew I had to restrain myself. Late that night, Pat met me out on deck. It was pitch black, so we decided to risk a stroll together. Pat told me the story.
Well, darling, shall we do what Rhoda wants? Keep up the masquerade?
Well, Romeo, it looks as if you've decided that already. Why ask me?
I'll stop if you want, Jean. Just say the word and I'll call the whole thing off.
Oh, it doesn't bother me too much. Not anymore. I think beneath this very sophisticated exterior of mine beats a very primitive heart. In that first moment when I saw you with Rhoda, I wanted to scratch your eyes out. But I'm getting used to it now.
Swear?
I swear. Pat, I think you should help her. I can share you for a few days if it means saving someone's life.
Well, we've talked a lot about how you feel, darling, but I'm in this ball game too, remember? I miss you.
Oh, Pat, darling.
Wait. Be quiet. People are coming. Come over here. No one must see us together.
Where we go?
Behind this lifeboat. Hurry. Be careful. That's it. Now duck down behind this one. That's it.
Cozy back here, huh, Pat?
Yeah. Come closer.
I don't hear any people coming.
There aren't any.
Pat Abbott.
I just thought if you and I sat down behind this lifeboat where nobody could see us, it's, well, as good as being parked on Observation Hill in my old jalopy. Remember those nights?
Remember them? Of course I do.
Look at that rolling water. And the stars just above the masthead. Just like one of those nights together back in New Mexico.
Oh, what in the world is
Came
that?
from down the deck. That way.
Pat, the alarm bell.
Men overboard! Men overboard!
Pat, wipe that lipstick off your cheek.
All right. And you've got a smudge of white paint on your nose. They must have just painted that lifeboat. Here, take my handkerchief.
Men overboard!
They're lowering a boat for him, see?
Oh, there go the searchlights. They'll find him.
Where is he? Have they spotted him?
Out there, Freddy. See where I'm pointing? Searchlights seem to be concentrating there. See what? Oh. Did you see him go over, Harry?
No, Fred. Mrs. Abbott and I didn't see a thing.
Where's Rhoda?
Oh, why, she's...
Isn't it all? Oh, did they find the man yet?
no, not yet, Rhoda. They're looking for him. You shouldn't come out that way. You freeze in those pajamas.
Oh, I was so frightened when the bell rang. I just jumped out of bed and ran to the deck.
Passengers, return to your cabins, please. Return to your cabins, please. Keep the decks clear.
I returned to my cabin, and Pat went with Rhoda to her cabin. They never recovered the body, although they did their best. The ship's officers checked each cabin to find out who was missing. After the checkup, the announcement was made that Pat Abbott was missing. They questioned me, sort of implying I'd pushed my husband overboard or something. No one on board knew what he looked like except me. So I made up a description that didn't fit Pat at all, since he was supposed to be Harry Prescott, Rhoda's husband. Pat went on playing the role for Rhoda's sake. A bit too enthusiastically, I thought sometimes. Anyway, he'd steal back to my cabin occasionally and bring me up to date. The night before we were to dock at Southampton, I got a note from Rhoda asking me to come to her cabin.
I'm so glad you've come, Mrs. Abbott. I wanted to thank you. I suppose it sounds ridiculous saying thanks for the use of your husband.
It's all right, if we've helped you.
Of course you have. So much. I won't feel absolutely safe until we dock, though when I see the real Harry waiting for me at the pier. I know Fred and Johnny. They don't give up easily. I do hope it works well at the pier and nothing goes wrong.
I don't think they've caught on.
I'm not sure. I've a terrible premonition that something awful's going to happen, especially since that night when a man went overboard.
Well, just skip the premonition. Keep calm.
I don't know what they're liable to do, what awful scheme they may have.
Well, why don't you just try to forget all about it until we reach Southampton?
I will, but it's difficult. I've tried bromides, long walks to tire myself out. I just can't sleep. I can't calm down. That's your husband now, pretending, of course, that he's mine. I'll go to the bar, have a drink, give you two a chance to be alone.
Well, both my wives. Very convenient.
I honestly think you're taking this too lightly.
Am I?
I won't be satisfied until we've landed safely and the real Harry and I are off to Sheffield.
Oh, aren't Fred and Johnny going there, too?
Yes, but my husband's bringing a private guard with him, and it's a quick trip. I was just telling Jean I'd leave you two.
See you later, Rhoda?
Certainly. Bye.
Strange feeling.
What is?
Being alone with another woman's husband.
Oh. Well, I hope you don't find it pleasant. Might become a habit.
Pat, what do you think Fred and Johnny have up their sleeves?
We'll see. They'll have to play any card they have very fast. Speaking of what's being concealed around here, have you told anyone I'm a detective?
Well, of course not.
And the assignment? The gold? The bonds? You mentioned that?
Well, certainly not. Is there some on this ship? Being moved back to England?
Mm-hmm.
Well, where'd it come from? Well, why are they shipping it from New York? I thought... Oh, I see. They're shipping it by a zigzag camouflage route. Probably brought it up from the West Indies.
Now, you just mind your own business, dear. I'm on special assignment to watch that stuff, and that's all you have to know. I just told you that much in case anything happens to me. Might come in handy for you to know. Now, come on, let's get out of here. It'd look very bad if you're found in here. But there's no harm in our walking the deck together.
Oh, there are those two creeps again, Fred and Johnny.
Yeah.
They certainly turn up often, don't they? They couldn't be crowding us a little, could they?
They could. Hi, Fred. Hello, Johnny.
Hello there. So you two are really hitting it off, aren't you? Where's Rhoda?
You're going to the bar.
She leaves you on a honeymoon like that? With a girl as pretty as Jean?
Oh, she's not the possessive type.
It is curious, you know.
Speaking of curious facts, Fred, you and Johnny just showed up almost automatically when that man went overboard, didn't you? Just walking around, that is?
Yeah. Just walking around. Why?
Well, it's just that you two always pop up wherever Rhoda and I can be found. You turn up all over the place.
Look, my friend, I've got some advice for you. Don't shoot your mouth off. Don't dream up a lot of things. Don't ask questions. It isn't healthy.
Oh, thanks. That's kind of you, Fred. Now, I have some advice for you two. Don't start up with me. That isn't healthy either. Now get going. You heard me?
I'd like...
Wait, Freddie, wait.
Not now. Not here. Come on. See you around, friend.
Pat Abbott, you're a fine one. You'll get your head knocked off.
Uh-huh. That's part of the idea, Jean. I want them to try something. It'll force the whole thing out into the open.
And where are you dashing to now?
The radio room. I'm going to try to reach the real Harry Prescott by cable.
Now, how can you? And what for? What are you up to?
Now, look, you. Don't ask questions. It isn't healthy.
Pat simply wouldn't explain. The next morning, our ship pulled into Southampton. Rhoda seemed to be in high spirits, feeling the worst was over. We came down the gangplank together, Pat, Rhoda, and I. Fred and Johnny were walking a little behind us. And as we stepped off the gangplank and onto the pier,
Harry must be here somewhere. I can't wait to see him.
Well, is he anywhere in that crowd, Rhoda, behind the ropes?
No, I don't see him yet. I'll find him back of the customs barrier, I'm sure. Don't say anything now. Here comes Fred.
Friends meeting you at the pier, Rhoda?
Yes, Fred, I expect some. I was just looking for them.
Well, I guess this is goodbye for us, Rhoda. See you later somewhere.
Mr. Abbott? Yes, I'm Pat Abbott.
You're Harry Prescott, aren't you?
What's this all about?
Well, he isn't named Abbott, Inspector.
Oh, yes, I am. You see, Fred and Johnny, I had friends waiting at the pier, too. They're very anxious to meet you, Inspector...
Inspector McClintock of the Yard. We have men all over the dock, so I would advise no one to try anything.
This gentleman is Pat Abbott, and I'm his wife. First time I could say so in almost a week, and I don't mind announcing it at all. Now, let's go on from there.
Rhoda, what the devil have you done?
Don't you start anything, Fred. Rhoda told us about the will.
The will? What will?
If you'll all excuse me, I'd like to look for my husband. He might be at the other end of the pier.
I hardly think so, Rhoda.
My arm! You're hurting my arm, Mr. Abbott.
Well, I just want to be sure you won't run off on some foolish errand, Rhoda. Harry isn't on this pier, is he? He isn't even in England, I'd say.
I don't know what you're talking about. Let go of me.
Go ahead, Mr. Abbott. Let's have the rest.
Your husband is at the bottom of the ocean, isn't he, Rhoda? Your beloved husband you've been so worried about? Right? He's dead and gone.
Inspector, I appeal to you. This man is just...
Please continue, Mr. Abbott.
When the roll call was made, after a man went overboard, they said Pat Abbott was missing. That meant Harry was really the man that was missing, didn't it? I'd taken his place, hadn't I?
Rhoda, if you pulled a trick like that...
Oh, but she did, Fred.
She murdered Harry?
Certainly. I knew your husband must have registered on board, Rhoda, or the roll call would never have come out that way. Your husband worked for an international bank, all right. He was helping bring gold and bonds and other valuables to London. He wanted to keep his presence on board very quiet, so he stayed in his cabin, allowed no one to spot him. Well, that played right into your hands. You had a smuggling gimmick figured out with Freddie and Johnny. They'd knock him off, use his papers, his keys, get access to the bullion, sneak some of it off the ship in that luggage you pointed out to me.
You can't prove any of that.
But then you got greedy. You decided you wouldn't have to split with Freddie and Johnny. You'd do it all yourself. They'd never seen Harry. So you got me to portray your husband. Freddie and Johnny would go off on a wild goose chase trying to kill me. And they'd step into trouble they didn't expect. Meantime, you killed Harry yourself. Dragged the body out in the dead of night and shoved it into the sea.
But evidence, Pat. I don't see how you can really
Dear,
prove...
remember when you and I hid behind that lifeboat and you got white paint on your nose?
Well, certainly.
Well, they just painted the lifeboats. When Rhoda came out on deck, she was in pajamas. Remember?
Why,
and it struck me as being just odd enough to call for some investigation. So during one of the many times I was in your cabin, Rhoda, I looked at your dresses. One of them had a big white smudge on it. Paint from the lifeboat. Now, don't tell me you can explain how that happened. Jean and I hid behind one for a reason, but why did you? Could it be that you hid the dead body there till you got the right moment, when the deck was deserted, so you could push it over? Or could it be you sweated it out when somebody saw the body go over and turned in an alarm? Or could it be that you saw the murder rap coming if they found that body in the water?
Well, then, Pat, there isn't any will or any dead uncle.
Inspector, I'd like to make a small bet with you that Rhoda has a very fancy trunk with hidden compartments. And in the compartments, you'll find very high-valued negotiable bonds, securities, yes, maybe some pure gold, all of which was in Harry's custody. And if you'll check with the purser...
I already have. Harry had a safe deposit box. Rhoda here visited quite a few times. That being watched or questioned, of course, being his wife. The box is quite empty. That stuff in the trunk, too, Rhoda?
You can't hold us, Inspector. We didn't do a thing.
Except plan to lift all those valuables with Rhoda. Except planned homicide before she beat you to it. Shall we get off the pier? Have a car waiting.
Oh, Rhoda?
Yes, Mrs. Abbott.
My curiosity's killing me. The jig's up, so I presume you'll tell the truth. I think I know all about this crime, but,
Yes?
Well, you spent so much time alone with my husband. I don't want to spend the rest of my life wondering.
Wondering what happened between us?
Exactly.
The car is waiting. We've the boat train to catch to London, Jean.
Well, Rhoda, suppose we leave that part of the mystery unsolved, shall we? After all, it's the best part, isn't it?
I hate that woman.
Oh, she was just being coy. After all, a woman would get satisfaction from not answering that question you asked.
I hate you, too.
No, this is a fine, high-class London hotel. We're comfortable. Food is better in England now. We've got theater tickets, dinner dates with friends. Relax, dear. Enjoy your stay here.
How did Scotland Yard know you wanted them to meet you here at the dock?
Well, when I went to the radio room, I wired the yard to ask if they knew a Harry Prescott. They wired back that he worked for an international bank and was on board our ship with valuables. So I told them to meet us and have the whole pier covered, in case Fred, Johnny, or Rhoda tried anything fancy.
Mm-hmm. How long will we be here?
Oh, it'll take about a week to wrap up my assignments. The British government's bringing lots of valuables back to London on various ships and planes, and don't ask when or where. You can go on shopping sprees. I'll be back every night.
Look, Pat, the Thames. It's corny, but every time I look out the window in London, I get a big charge.
I know, so do I. Parliament, Westminster. The bobbies on the corner. I'm a real pushover, too. Tourist type. Gawking, wide-eyed American. Yeah, it's a thrilling view from here, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Thrilling, darling.
You seem so thoughtful. What are you thinking? About us? Wishing we're on our honeymoon again?
No.
You want to duck tonight's date and go somewhere alone? Is that what you're thinking?
No.
Thinking how much you love me?
No.
Well, what is it, darling?
I hate that woman.
Oh.
I hate that woman.
The National Broadcasting Company has presented The Adventures of the Abbotts, starring Claudia Morgan and Les Damon as those popular personalities of detective fiction, Pat and Jean Abbott, created by Francis Crane. The cast included Catherine Barrett, Santos Ortega, and Maurice Tarplin. The Adventures of the Abbotts was written by Howard Merrill. Original music composed and conducted by Dewey Bergman. Produced by Ted Lloyd and Bernard L. Schubert. Directed and recorded by Harry Frazee. This is Wayne Howell speaking. Next week, same time, same station. Another exciting adventure in crime with Pat and Jean in The Adventures of the Abbotts.
This is the United States Armed Forces Radio and Television Service.